You are wandering through a museum and see a group of people gathering around a painting. You fight the crowd for a moment, barely squeezing in between others, trying to peek at something life-changing. Instead, you see a canvas with what appears to be the work of a toddler, dog, and possibly a hamster that were given an open can of paint. How can this be considered valuable when compared to Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci, and Rembrandt? Abstract art is not meant to represent reality in the traditional sense, but to express relationships, ideas, feelings, and thoughts in an artistic form. Today, I'm going to explain how abstract art can be very valuable to our society as a way of expression for those who have difficulty communicating their thoughts and feelings in a typical way. First, I'm going to discuss a connection between artistic drive and mental illness. Next, I'll explain how abstract art speaks a different language that realism doesn't. Lastly, I want to explore the idea that abstract art can heal those suffering from mental illness. I've studied art for a decade and have taken multiple art classes, as well as being an amateur painter. The emotional effect that art has had on myself and my own work has been the inspiration of this speech, as well as having members of my family, including my mother and my daughter, who suffer from mental illness and have found solace through art. Artistic expression can often be misunderstood, much like mental illness, and I hope this will instill a deeper understanding of what abstract art can give us. To begin, mental illness and art. Is there a connection? Over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle said, "Those who have been eminent in philosophy, politics, poetry, and art have all had tendencies towards melancholia." This is a painting from Jackson Pollock, a more modern abstract artist, who said, "I've been thinking of death a lot, and I am amazed by its inevitability. Frightened, as we all are, of the totally unknown, and yet feel a long sleep is somehow earned by those of us who live on the edge." Another famous abstract artist, Pablo Picasso, said, "People want to find a meaning in everything and everyone. That's the disease in our age." This is also a painting from him, one of his most famous. And finally, Edvard Munch, another abstract artist who's in the early 1900s, said, "My troubles are a part of me and my art. They are indistinguishable from me, and treatment would destroy my art. I want to keep these sufferings." Here is one of his most famous paintings. Merriam-Webster defines melancholia as a mental condition marked by persistent depression and ill-founded fears. Unfortunately, it seems that the price of artistic expression can often be the stability of mental health. Dr. Nancy Andreasen, a leading psychiatrist and neuroscientist, has focused her studies on the brain of creative people who suffer from mental illness. She published results of her analysis, finding that a surprisingly high rate of creative minds, 80%, suffered from mental health issues compared to a non-creative control group, which was only 30%. Her research has been followed up by multiple studies reflecting the physical and chemical similarities between creativity and mental illness, both focusing on dopamine levels in the frontal lobe of the brain. To take this one step further, in a study done by the Office for National Statistics in England, statistics show suicide risk was highest for men and women working as artists, literary, or media occupations. And to explore another concept, abstract art as a form of expression is essentially a different language. Mentally ill individuals need another way to express themselves, Dr. Andreasen suggested, that lets the artistic mind have a different version of schizophrenia that loosens their associations enough to enhance creativity, but not enough to lose touch with reality. This means that those with such an illness need a disconnect from what they're experiencing in life and a chance to express it while still being part of the real world. Expressing themselves to others as well as introspection is essential, but if what you're experiencing can't be amalgamated the way that others do, abstract ways may be formed. Thus, we see art as a language many mentally ill people use to find a solid footing. Because they're suffering from depression, anxiety, and trauma, they need to have an outlet as artists. A recent example of this would be a boy named Nam Jane, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2 and had to use technology to speak with those around him. In 2016, his mother introduced him to painting, and he quickly discovered a passion as well as a talent for it. His abstract art reflects the artistic world that he's a part of in a way that a mentally healthy person might not be able to perceive. Autistic individuals have a hard time processing emotion and comprehending, but his paintings reflect a certain degree of understanding that wasn't there before he began painting. They gave him a purpose and much needed inspiration in his life. Finally, let's talk about how abstract art can heal. We've all watched the TV show where a psychiatrist asks a patient to draw their feelings, and usually it solves a murder case or a child abduction. The reality is that art has actually been used by psychiatrists to express themselves, patients to express themselves in a non-traditional way since the 40s. This often brings understanding, validation, and even healing through art. One example would be the Prinzhorn collection, which was gathered together by the art historian and Dr. Hans Prinzhorn. It's over 5,000 drawings made by his patients at the Heidelberg Psychiatric Clinic in Germany. These drawings allowed the therapist to start a conversation about a patient's thoughts and feelings that they weren't able to express any other way. These drawings reflect sadness, anger, trauma, terror, fear, anxiety, and a multiple of other feelings, as well as delusional imaginings that haunted them, finding peace only through artful expression. Currently, art therapy is a licensed branch of psychology that focuses on helping individuals, both children and adults, to resolve many personal issues through a creative outlet. Often their artwork isn't sensical in the most standard form, but very abstract, because that is the way their mind interprets traumatizing events, complex emotions, or creative imaginings. In conclusion, abstract art might not seem valuable. When you take into account the artists who are suffering from an internal struggle and mental illness, understanding, analyzing, and appreciating their art might be viewed a little differently. Often the abstract world of artists is considered great because it has the power to reveal a world that a mentally capable person might never visit. As terrifying and useless as art from a mentally distraught person may seem, 18.5% of Americans suffer from a mental illness in a given year. Having a window into their lives and the challenges that they face may truly be priceless.